Out of this Puerto Rico situation, you know, that's sort of like the also-ran when it comes to debt awareness, but they're right close to us, $73 billion in arrears, and right now they're putting together a debt plan that they hope will be received well by international officials. They're meeting in Washington today, what have you. But among some of the things they're looking at is to sort of pile it all together, if you will, and prepay on sustainable terms. In other words, either to extend it out so that whatever debt you have, and you do this when you refinance a home, if you stretch out the terms of the length of the loan, the payments will be a little less so it can get them over the hump. They're also looking that it be repaid on terms that might even produce lower rates. Now, it's hard to get much lower than we have right now, but keep in mind a lot of this Puerto Rican debt has been downgraded to virtual junk, and when that happens, the price gets walloped down, the yield goes up. Some of these Puerto Rican debentures and the like are going for double-digit rates, and obviously that is unaffordable for the Puerto Rican government to pay back. So what they're essentially saying is, can we stretch out the terms? Can we do something to just get us over what could be a very, very long hump? No reaction yet from international lenders or, for that matter, Washington officials. We're keeping an eye on it for you. Also keeping an eye, as Connell was pointing out, on this cyber issue and cyber stocks, which are still all the rage, as they were yesterday when trading was halted and then on again and off again. Certainly on the New York Stock Exchange and these related exchanges, these issues are all very, very hot right now. Paul Viollis on them and what we are to make of that cyber weakness. He follows this stuff very, very closely. Paul, if you ever needed reminders how vulnerable we are, even though these are all disparate and we're told disconnected events, but between the United Airlines thing and the stock thing and indications we got out of China, their computers handling what was heavy volume, even when stopped. Boy, you have no doubts now. We are everyone's cyber mercy, aren't we?
You know what, Neil? I think it begs the question, was this an example of a cascading failure, or was this an example of a penetration test? And I find it fascinating, and not that I'm challenging what stock exchange is saying or what United Airlines is saying, but I find it fascinating that they've already figured out that it wasn't a hack, where the vast majority of internal breaches come internally, not externally. So I think that's fascinating. Now,
what's that? A lot of people say don't create a fire where there's no smoke. But
right.
One of the things that I find interesting is that a hack can originally evidence itself through a glitch. I don't know anything about what I'm talking about. I know something about Control-Alt-Delete. But, I mean, I think the feeling was that sometimes hacks are originally detected by glitches, right? By something
Correct.
hiccuping in a computer system. Explain.
Correct. So, but look at the macro side of that is a point that we really need to address, and that's with respect to a budgetary issue. And we know that less than 10% of corporate budgets as it relates to IT are directed and earmarked for security. What we're seeing, whether this was a pen test or whether it wasn't, what we're seeing is a blatant example of cheap is expensive. If you're not going to dedicate an anti-crime platform with your corporation or in government, this is just going to continue to happen. We're openly vulnerable. What we saw yesterday was just a blatant example of that.
But I said, and I know you and I've gotten this before, even if it's not bad guys doing this, bad guys could take great encouragement from this, right? They could look at this and say, boy, these guys are vulnerable.
Oh, they're salivating at this point. I mean, whether this was an attack or not, this just, again, comes back to how overtly vulnerable we are and how we're creating this ourselves. I think it's so important to recognize that. Now, on the other side of it, the positive lesson the American people get from this is that you can see that the redundancies that are built into systems, so there are fallbacks, which is great. But by the same token, it's a matter of corporate culture, and it's a matter of how we're going to handle this as a country. And are we going to have the leadership that's going to proactively create tiered systems to prevent and identify these attacks early on? Or are we going to keep waiting till we get hit and then all of a sudden one day, Neil, the lights turn out? What are we going to do?
That's when you worry. Paul, thank you. Good seeing you again, my friend.